understanding is a good call to action, what's a bad call to action, and what might work for your organization. So to start things off, a call to action, Andy and I will probably use the word CTA a lot because it is less words to say, but it is a prompt designed to get your audience to take a specific action. So we're going to go through what those different kinds of prompts are. And in a lot of our examples, we're going to show different actions that you might want to take. Some organizations really want folks on their site to make a donation or to sign up for something, or just click on an article and read it. Maybe they're a clearinghouse for resources. Oftentimes these are in the form of buttons, but we're going to be showing you a whole list of different mediums and use cases and examples, because something we'll be talking a little bit about later is just making sure that you have a variety and that you're using what is going to work best for your audience, your medium, and what you are looking to get them to do.
So I think this is my section. So I'm going to talk a little bit about CTA examples and just some things that we've seen across some current clients, former clients. So the first one is from the Hebrew Free Loan Society. They offer loans at no interest to New Yorkers. So we can see here, we've got a great picture that has a little bit of information about what we might be seeing when we click on that CTA, which is read my story. So they're kind of trying to draw you into like, here's an adorable picture of an adorable couple with an adorable baby. Maybe you want to read this story and find out a little bit more about what their organization does. And then this is a very simple CTA from an email, just one line that says, please make a gift, and then why your gift is important. And we'll talk a little bit more about those kinds of elements a little later on. Yeah, and then we've got a button, lots of buttons. There's always buttons in CTAs. So we've got an example here from another email, but this is a survey, so it kind of leads people in with the survey, and then a big button that says, take the full survey now. Pretty eye-catching. We got another button, another button. And then this one is on a website. It's got a main CTA, take action now, talks a little bit about more about what that action would entail, and then kind of draws you in with an image. And then we've got more buttons, lots of buttons.
So like we were saying earlier, the reason these are important is because a user is not going to inherently know what to do on your site once they get there. And, there are definitely things that the user is going to want to do, but why we are all here today is because we want to get the users to do what you want them to do, which is this time of year, probably signing up for something or donating. And so CTAs help communicate that. Andy shared a lot of examples, give now, take the full survey. It is very clear what you want them to do and really what that ultimate end goal is. It is what is going to stand out on your site. So it, kind of serves two purposes. It's, okay, what do you want me to do? But also we need to make sure that people look at it. So in the examples Andy just showed, you saw, they use different styles, lots of bright, flashy colors, big text, images, different language that kind of stands out from the rest of your site. And then making it very clear what's going to happen next. If you have a button that just says, click here, it's not really clear what's going to happen next. So you want to make sure that your CTAs give users an understanding of, if I take this action, this is what is going to happen next. And so, for example, I think I've got a button here. So the next slide, we're going to be learning more. So if I click this button, I would expect to get more information, which we will do. So talking a little bit about, what makes a good CTA. I think the first thing is really just keep it simple. You want to make sure that it's not confusing of what action you want me to take, what I'm supposed to expect. And the easiest way to do that is to use less words. so that the user doesn't have to read through a giant paragraph just to understand what you want them to do or why they should do something. Really, just the more words that you use, it opens up the potential for something to be more confusing. There's definitely cases where you want to provide some context, but there are ways that you can do that either through making that text a different color and your actual CTA is that, big bright blue. Or, as part of your user journey, using that to inform them. But the CTA should be as clear as possible. Also helps to make sure that it is easy to follow, that, again, I'm not clicking on a button expecting one thing and then it sends me somewhere else. And then balancing not only the individual CTA, but also with the elements around it. If you have a page where there are 47 competing CTAs, it's really going to be confusing of like, what is the actual thing that you want me to do here? What's the most important thing? We want to avoid choice paralysis. So this is something we'll get to a little bit later, but of, balancing the calls to action on your page and making sure that folks can find them easily, but also not overwhelming them. Next is a good CTA is always going to create a sense of urgency. If you use more passive language, folks probably aren't going to act as quickly. So in a lot of the examples that Andy shared earlier, it used words like act now, donate today, things that give the user an understanding of like, if I want to participate, I need to participate while I am here. This isn't something that I should come back to. And you can do that through other elements other than just using words. You can use visual elements, colors. Red always indicates kind of priority or urgency, and interactive elements like a countdown clock, especially this time of year, works really, really well. There's 12 hours left until the new year. Make sure to make your donation now. Also with thermometers, where people can feel like they are working towards something with someone else, and that, oh, if the thermometer is really low, I can be one of the first ones to donate. That's really exciting. Or if the thermometer is almost full, I can be part of the, last few to donate and help us get over that hump. So that helps people want to be included, and that if they don't take action now, they'll lose out on the opportunity. And lastly, if you can ever tie it into something that's happening in the community, things that your constituents would be aware of, and tying that into the CTA. We see this a lot with some of our more rapid response clients, like the League of Women Voters, where they're responding to legislation happening, now, whether it be on the state level or the national level. And so they can tie this information that folks are getting from other sources, not having to educate them on what's happening. They already know. But what they want to do is to have the user sign a petition, donate, so that funds can be directed towards passing or stopping that legislation, what have you. Just like with the previous example with using the words that create a sense of urgency, you also want to use words that create a sense of action. Some things that we've already talked about, learning, donating, give, but those are really just the start. You can tie things in also to your mission, give the gift of water, I think was an earlier example. So making sure that it is clear what you want them to do by using action words, but giving that sense of purpose to the reader of, okay, what am I actually going to be a part of by taking this action? And the next thing is, again, thinking of how we're communicating this is to really draw on emotion. And this can be done through words and visuals, really telling a story. Some of the, images that Andy showed earlier, like the one of the family, that really evokes a sense of love and care and family, that it's a very small picture, and in no words, it's able to communicate that entire story of that journey to adoption. And it's a great opportunity to tie it back to your organization's mission, not using generic imagery or generic language, making it as specific as you can to tie it back into what you do, and telling them why it matters. Again, going back to like, give the gift of water. Why do we need to give the gift of water? It's obvious that it's because people in communities don't have access. And so by taking this action, you're directly impacting those and making a change. And this all ties back into getting into the personal of why people came. We often, see personalization being used. As much as you can tie on how that constituent has already been active in your organization, this works extremely well in emails, and you can also do this in targeted ads as you get more information on your supporters, making them feel like you're really talking to them, because the more generic or general it is, it's not really going to make them stop and think. If you're walking down the street and someone just says hi, you're less likely to stop than if somebody said, "Hi, Andy." You're going to be like, "Whoa, this person knows me. They're talking to me. I need to stop and listen to what they have to say." And the last thing, which we'll be going over a little bit more later, and oh, there it goes. How long is this going to go on for? Okay, that was relatively short. Hopefully it doesn't happen again, because it's only 2:19, at least by my clock. Anyways, the last thing is, in order, we've shared a lot of tips and tricks about what makes a good CTA, but the most important thing you can do is test, because depending on your audience, your mission, your medium, it's going to be different for you. So as much as you can test, the better, to make sure you are optimizing your calls to action as much as you can. We're going to be going over a lot of these later, but color. Does red work better versus blue for our donate buttons? And honestly, that color choice might be different for a different call to action. Where on the page are people more likely to click? What language resonates with our users? How many buttons is the right number of buttons to have in our email? And there's a whole host of other things. We talked a little bit about it already, but imagery, the specific, kind of personalization that you use. And whenever you can, try to think of who your audience is and being able to speak to those different audiences. I know a lot of organizations are really trying to balance, I'm trying to keep my existing donor base that may be on the older side, that still use direct mail and aren't maybe as technologically savvy. But I also need to reach out to younger donors to help to cultivate a new generation of a supporter base. How do I create CTAs that speak to both of my audiences, but I can only have one CTA? How do I find what is that magic sauce to talk to both of them?
So I think we can kind of break down CTAs into 4 different main mediums, is the best word I can think of. So we've got social media, websites, emails, and then forums. And it's really important to understand all of those mediums, like what their purpose is. If you have somebody landing on a donation page, the purpose is to get them to donate and not necessarily drive them to another site or have them sign up for an email list. Maybe do that after. And then we want to understand the limitations. So for example, social media, a lot of times you're really limited on how much text you can include. And then we want to understand the relationship to one another. So sometimes we'll have calls to action in social media that say, hey, text, this number to, say end gun violence. And that then can maybe funnel you into different CTAs of like, volunteering or things like that. And then also you can have emails sending out to folks with a specific campaign that'll guide folks to a donation form. So especially if you have like your email and your donation form, you kind of want to make sure they have the same messaging, maybe the same imaging, so it's not so jarring to the user, so they're not on one email and then it takes them to a donation page that's about something else entirely. So then looking at some specifics here. So for the first example, we have email. So usually it's email is focused around one specific ask, unless it's a newsletter. It usually consists of buttons and links, in-text links. And then it also has, it's a great tool for storytelling and imagery. You can really focus on one specific story. So for example, in this email campaign, it focused on a woman in rural Rwanda who was a school teacher and talking about her experience with getting clean water for her community. And then also there are a lot of limitations across platforms with emails. Microsoft Office is kind of the worst for emails sometimes. So it's a little more limited in what you have the capability of doing. It's not like a website. So then we also have social media. So the goal of social media, because a lot of people are just kind of scrolling, you know, you want to have really engaging images, you want to have a really engaging message. You don't want to have a whole paragraph. Also, usually you can't have a whole paragraph because the text is limited, but you want to make sure the message is very clear. This message is getting folks to sign up for their newsletter, and they're kind of being a little vague, like, hey, this cool stuff's coming up. What is this cool stuff? You don't know? You should read our newsletter. We'll tell you all about it. And then it has all these great images that kind of hint at something cool is happening and we don't know what, and now I want to find out. And then we also have a website. So this is a very simple example of a CTA on a website. So we've got a very bold kind of bit of text that says, hey, do this thing, and then here's a button to tell you how to get there. It also has a little bit more descriptive text underneath. But when it comes to websites, we have so many more options because we're not as limited in what we're allowed to do. So, you know, you can have light boxes, you can have, you know, you can have different buttons in different colors in different places, and like you can have things that pop up and disappear, all sorts of things like that. So you have a lot more options when it comes to websites. It's almost kind of hard to explain all of the options you have because there's just so many. And then with donation forms, so by the time somebody lands on a donation form, you want to make sure that your messaging is simple and clear. You want to make sure the form is very easy to use. And then you can have other options, but make sure they're kind of tucked away. You want to keep people on that donation form. You want to make them go through it and actually convert. So make the form as easy as possible to use. You know, I really love this form. It's got a very strong image and a very strong message that is connected to that image. And then it has really great colors. And then it's very simple, like, yes, one-time donation, $100, next, let's go. So yeah, that's forms.
I always love this form as well because it looks like it connects to, this is for Meals on Wheels, which provides meals to seniors, but he's like looking directly into your soul. So it's a great way to use imagery to get personal as well. Like it looks like he's looking right at you. So like I said at the beginning, if you've been just listening in, now comes for the interactive part, for a little game that we're going to call The CTA is Right. I tried to put the theme music to The Price is Right in here, but it wouldn't play for you all. So just play it in your head right now. The way that this is going to work is we're going to provide a host of different case studies and give you two options and talk a little bit about the organization, the campaign, what the goal was. And then what we would like you to do in the comments is post the option, either one or two, that you think won the test. So for the first one, if everybody is ready, the first example is testing button text. So the first version was a shorter button text. So as we talked about earlier, you want to keep your CTAs short and sweet. This one is just donate now. It's very clear what you want me to do. 2 little words. It provides that sense of urgency. We're creating some context in the text around it. And this is for organization WaterAid. and they provide funding to help get water to those in need. And this was a part of an email campaign. So this was our first option. The second one was longer button text. So again, thinking back to what we talked about makes a good CTA. This one has a lot more water. It, is our message going to get muddied if we have more words on that button? But it also, gets back to making it personal, tying it into the mission. If we're, the mission of the organization is to give clean water, it's right there on the button. So we wanted to test this out. Which one would resonate with users more? So if folks want to go ahead and vote, just put in 1 or 2. All right, Dana says 2. Andrew says 1. All right, it's a tie right now on which one's going to win. And option 2 was the winner. It had, over 80% increase in clicks. So this was much more compelling to folks to get them to take action and, tie into what the organization wanted them to do. And so WaterAid has continued to use this tactic with using more descriptive buttons and to be able to tie that back into their message rather than using a shorter button, but a more generic way to call their supporters to action. Uh-oh. It
really
gave away.
Huh?
It gave away the.
Oh, it did. Dang it.
Response.
Well, dang it. That's my bad. I'm really excited to talk about this test, though. So this was for Friends of the Earth. So we decided to add something to their homepage. So Sarah, would you actually mind clicking to show the next?
Oh, yeah.
Well, that works. So we already know which one won. I think it's also may have been a little easier to guess on this one. So version 2 is actually their original homepage. They had the hero image with a very clear header on the page, like Friends of the Earth is a bold voice for justice on the planet, like really grabbing image and really grabbing text right there. But they really wanted to focus on increasing their conversions on the homepage because I think a lot of the people that land on their site land on the homepage first. We do have 2 donation buttons in the top, which we have tested as well. So there already is a call to action there, but we kind of wanted to bring in a little bit more. So we thought, hey, let's add a call to action right below the hero image. So we added this big red bar with a clear message that says, hey, you, site visitor, help power change. You are going to help power change by making this donation. So in the year that we implemented this test, we had a 50% increase in year-end conversions, which was huge. And it also did it performed really well on mobile because the big red, we call it a donation bar. The big red donation bar is above the fold on mobile, and it's like right there. And it's really just, bright color, very, very much arresting. Like it stops you, like you stop when you're scrolling down the page and like, look at that. So yeah, kind of gave that one away, but hopefully the rest are.
I checked all the rest of them and they're animating correctly. Just one thing to add on this, Andy talked about how it was kind of center right there, right below or above the fold. That's also where like folks' thumbs naturally go to scroll. So it's really easy, like just physically to click. Whereas if your button is on your mobile device all the way up in the top, it's a little bit like more difficult to just easily click. So even thinking of that of like, okay, on mobile, like where is the most natural place for someone to click to do whatever I want them to do? All right. The next one is also from our friends at Friends of the Earth. And they wanted to test ask type. So in this example, and I'll put both of them up here so you can kind of see the difference. So they wanted to add an element on their blog pages. So as you can see, they're in the same spot on the blog, but would folks more likely take a donation call to action or a sign up call to action when presented it on a blog post? They saw that this was a good opportunity. Some of their highest traffic pages are their blog posts because again, it ties into the news and what's happening in their community. So they wanted to take advantage of not only, getting people to, of course, read the post, but also to tie it back into their mission. And like, if you enjoyed reading this blog post, here is how you can stay involved in our organization. So which ask type do folks think converted better? Do, 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 do. All right, donate. We have 1 for sign up, 2 for sign up. We're tied again. All right, sign up is taking the lead. And you are correct. It converted 35% more than the donate. And most likely that's the case because it is a softer ask. Most likely when people are coming to a blog post, they're not ready to whip out their credit card and donate, but they're probably more likely to sign up to learn more or just stay informed and stay in the loop for more blog posts like this. See what Friends of the Earth is doing to address environmental issues. So this is something that they have implemented on their blog template. So for every blog post, this appears, and they can continue to get signups in a very strategic way for their high trafficked pages.
All right, so this next example focuses a little bit more on the type of images that are being used. So this is on a donation form. So sometimes half the battle is getting people to the donation form, and then the other half of the battle is actually getting them to click donate. You know, a lot of times people will make it to the donation form and they won't finish that funnel, and because, you know, maybe they'll get distracted, or like, you know, their kid's asking for a snack and they gotta go do that first. So this client, Oblates of the Virgin Mary, wanted to test 2 different kinds of images. So the first image, we have kind of a more general image at mass, just lots of people, you know, stuff like that. And then in the second image, we have a very personal image, which is specifically of another person kind of staring right at you. You know, they're very happy, kind of conveying like, hey, like, we really appreciate your support kind of message. But yeah, eye contact. So yeah, what do folks think as far as which one won in this case? All right, Casey says 2. Yes, that smile. That is a very great smile. Everybody's smiling. You can tell. 2. Yep. I think 2 is in the lead, Sarah. And yes, you're correct. So we saw an 85% increase in conversions. So an 85% increase in the amount of people that ended up donating, and then a 17% decrease in bounce rate. So that means fewer people were leaving the donation form once they got there.
All right, so the next one is another imagery example, again, from the Oblates organization. So they do a daily live stream of the masses at their churches, and they want to get more people to click and attend and watch those. So the first one, similar to the last test, was this more general image of a church. And then the other option was a more personal image of a woman praying. And so they wanted to see, you know, with the donation form, the personal image was more connecting to the user to get them to make a donation. But what would work well for a different call to action? So any guesses here? All right, Dana says 1. Probably because you can tell that I threw this one in for a reason. Any other guesses? Or do you all think it's too obvious? All right, we got a lot for 1, but there was actually no real winner here. And I think that's the important thing in CTAs, is just sometimes one won't work better than the other. Sometimes it's just, this is something that does not matter, and I can use either image here and I'll really get the same conversion. So what would be here next is, okay, well, if the image doesn't matter, let me test maybe the placement of the live stream button, or maybe I should test the language on the live stream button. or the heading on this page. So just because there's no winner doesn't mean that you can't come to a conclusion. You come to the conclusion of this works well, no matter what we do, really has no impact. So let's go test something else. All right.
And this last example here is from an email campaign with the League of Women Voters. So they were running a donation ask, which also included a gift of a t-shirt, which if that is something you can do, that's great to do, but also like don't go out of your way to do that if that's not something your organization can do. So they wanted to test two different ask levels, and testing an ask string or ask level is a pretty common test, trying to figure out what is that price point where we can get folks to click on this button more and donate more. So in the first ask, we had $19. And then in the second ask, we had $26. So it's the exact same messaging, exact same imagery. The only thing that's changing is the ask, which I think this is also a great example. When you do testing, you don't want to change a bunch of different elements at once. Oh, it's 24. It is 24. Thank you, Sarah. So $24 ask versus a $19 ask. So when you're testing, you want to make sure you don't test a bunch of different elements at once, because you don't necessarily know what worked in that instance. So what do folks think? Do they think the $24 ask or the $19 ask got more conversions and more donations? We got one for one. We got a couple for one. Yep, 19. Okay. Okay, we got two. Yeah. So for this one, the $19 ask was the one that won. So especially right now, lower donation asks may be, a little easier to get people to convert with, because of, everything that's going on in the world, a little stress. Like when you're throwing out a really high ask, that can maybe sometimes throw people off. So this $19 ask ended up giving the League of Women Voters 4% more clicks on that specific email campaign and 35% more conversions.
I also think it's interesting. So 19 is also correlates to the 19th Amendment, which gave women the right to vote. So I also think it ties into kind of their mission a little bit better as well. They've used that tactic in other campaigns. But I know we've also seen the opposite work, where like the higher one does convert more. It doesn't really matter. And to Andy's point about not testing too many variables, because it's also just hard to figure out what is actually working and what isn't. And so you want to make sure that you're structuring your A/B tests thoughtfully, and not just changing things for the sake of changing them, having a clear hypothesis and goal in place so that you can measure these appropriately. Well, thank you all for participating. We did want to leave some time for questions at the end. You all want to ask anything about your end of your campaigns, or about calls to action on your site, but to go through some takeaways. The first one is around getting to know your audience. I think in order to best optimize your CTAs, you do have to have a good understanding of your audience. So this is not only, who's engaged with your organization now, but who do you want to attract? How are you getting organic traffic so that you can make sure that you are talking to your audience as a whole, because they are a big, diverse group of people. And through testing, you can get to know what resonates with them, what maybe doesn't work so well, and what works well across the different mediums that you use. It's super duper important that you know what you want them to do, and crafting your CTAs or your tests appropriately. And also remembering, again, that medium that you're using to communicate with them. As Andy went over, there are considerations that you'll need to take into account depending on those factors. Something like a animated GIF on an email may seem like a really great idea, but there's lots of considerations there because it's not going to run on Outlook. You need to have a fallback image. So if you're looking to have like that animation be the only thing that's grabbing people in, probably email is not a great method to do that. Whereas maybe in social, that was going to work a lot better. Hopefully this presentation gave you some ideas by seeing what others are doing. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. And there are lots of great organizations out there trying really cool stuff. And so often our ideas come from what we've seen other organizations do, talking to people in the nonprofit community, staying up to date on what is happening with technology. A couple of years ago, you couldn't embed a GIF in an email, and now you can. So what does that mean? And there's constantly new platforms, new things that you can do with them. And so just really staying up to date on what is the latest and greatest so that you can compete with other organizations as well. And all of this is to say is just try things out. The worst thing that's going to happen is that it's not going to convert well, but that's why you always want to test. Our go-to testing tool for websites had been Google Optimize up until September 30th when they sunset it. So there are other great tools out there as well to test on websites. The one that we are currently working with is VWO because they do offer a free plan. But there's a whole host of different tools that you can use out there. A lot of CRMs provide their own A/B testing tools. So if you're not taking advantage of those now, you're already paying for them in the tool. You might as well use them. And it's a great way to start trying things out now. We always recommend, testing throughout the year so that you know what's going to work well before year end. But since we're, 3 months away from the end of the year, there's no time like the present to test it out. And you'll really have a ton of eyeballs, so you'll be able to get to a conclusion a lot more quicker. We do have this great blog post about kind of digital fundraising best practices, more information on CTAs. So definitely check this out, and we will be sharing this around with everyone attending the webinar today with a whole host of information on CTAs, testing, types of things that you can be doing on your website, your email, what have you. So that is our presentation for today. I wanted to provide Andy and I's personal emails. If you have any questions for us, or if you're currently working with us and want to follow up on something that we've shared here today. If you're not currently working with us, but are interested in how we can help out with year-end fundraising or planning or implementing cool things on your site, or just want to talk more, you can reach out to hello@cornershopcreative.com, and our team will follow up. But with that, are there any, again, questions about what we've presented, challenges you're currently facing that we can help answer? So I think people can post things in the chat if they do have questions. And if there aren't any now, again, you can always email us and ask us. We're happy to help you out. All right. Well, thanks everybody for attending. And yeah, I know somebody already put a question in the comments about some more data on one of those tests, which we're happy to share. But thank you all for joining us, and wish you luck in the last 3 months of the year. You all do a lot of wonderful work, and I know that this is a very busy time for everyone. So if we can help out anyway, please let us know. Have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Good. All right, I can't end the call, so I'm just gonna go.
Okay.
Goodbye.